We're back with a Fox News alert this morning. The growing threat America faces from Iran, as a new report claims the terror nation has sent Russia hundreds of ballistic missiles, at least 4 of them, with more expected in the coming weeks. Fox News contributor and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is here to react. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being here. Iran could provide up to 400 of these missiles, which have hundreds of miles of reach. How new is this military alliance between the two, and what do you point to the reason for it?
Well, good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me on. Look, the alliance isn't new, but one of the partners, Iran, is wealthier. They have the capacity to build these missiles because the Biden administration simply refused to deter them. We gave them $6 billion in exchange for hostages. There's now more American hostages held by the Iranians in Gaza. This is a threat that is very real. I just left Kyiv a few days ago, Pete. Make no mistake about it. This increased firepower coming from Russia will kill Ukrainians and put all of Europe at risk. We have to demonstrate our resolve. We have to convince the Iranians that the cost of putting our young men and women at risk — we lost 3 of our military service members just a couple weeks back — we have to convince the Iranians that you can't ship these kind of missiles, you can't move this kind of product, and you can't continue to move your terror around the world, whether that's in Gaza or the Yemenis in the Red Sea. This is just unacceptable, and the Biden administration lost this very deterrence.
But what in the world have we done to convince Iran to stop doing these types of things? And these sanctions on Russia that were supposed to prevent their ability to conduct the war don't seem to have limited them at all.
These sanctions, Pete, have been enormously ineffective, not because the sanctions themselves couldn't work, but because we've created massive loopholes, allowing crude oil to move around the world, allowing complex technologies to flow in from China. All of the things that, Pete, like you have to, if you write something down, if you make a rule, you have to enforce it.
Yeah.
And we've simply failed to do that. This administration began by trying to get back in this silly nuclear deal, which gave billions of dollars to the Iranian regime, and it's now coming back to haunt not only the Middle East and Europe, but it'll come back to haunt the United States of America as well. This is the world's largest state sponsor of terror, and firing missiles into empty warehouses in Syria is not going to convince them to change their ways.
Do you anticipate this military alliance only increasing? I mean, does Iran have the capability to send even more sophisticated weapons to Russia should Russia want them?
So that's a good question, Pete. They have pretty sophisticated capabilities, not only the missile capabilities that you've talked about this morning, but a very capable set of drones that they have already provided to the Ukrainians. They have capable communications networks as well. This is a large power with a true capability, good research institutions, and if we don't deter them, if we don't convince them that the cost is higher, they'll stay at this, and more Americans will be killed as a result of that, Pete. It's just simply unacceptable and not inevitable.
Let's stick with Russia here, where they are in the business of using Americans as political pawns, including Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. Thankfully, recently, the U.S. ambassador to Russia had an opportunity to meet with him. This is Lynn Tracy. Here's a portion of what she had to say.
When the Kremlin uses lives as bargaining chips, real people suffer. The plight of U.S. citizens wrongfully detained in Russia remains a top priority for me, for my team, and for the entire U.S. government. It is unacceptable that Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan still languish in Russian prisons on baseless charges.
What more can we do to get them out, these Americans out?
Yeah, I pray for Evan. I pray for Paul. Paul was there when I was in office as Secretary of State. We have a whole bunch of tools that we can use. But, Pete, if you talk about a minor incursion into Ukraine being okay, if you allow Afghanistan to fall in the way we did and get 13 American service members killed, those are the kind of things that encourage this very kind of hostage taking. And then when you pay $1 billion to get each of our folks out of Iran, I'm thankful they're home to their families, but you have now set a market price for taking American hostages. You have to demonstrate American power, all of its tools, and those are the things. I'm glad the ambassador met with them. You should talk, and we should meet with these wrongfully detained persons. But the only thing that Vladimir Putin understands is power, and this administration simply refuses to use it, Pete.
Yeah, or we trade butchers for WNBA players, who we're glad to have back, but we trade butchers for them. It's crazy. Mike Pompeo, thank you, sir, for your time.
Yes, sir, Pete. Have a good day.
You got it.